Okay, so good evening, friends. Thank you for joining. And as people are joining in, what I suggest is maybe we can start going with the introduction. A brief introduction, those who are not introduced. Okay. So first, let me invite Chandran Ram. So Chandran, you can introduce yourself, a brief about you, what you do, so that two people can get connected with you.
Hi. Can you all see me?
No,
No,
your
no,
name.
now please.
Right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, friends.
Good evening.
This is Chandran.
Okay.
I belong to the IITD 8th batch along with Bala and Kushalji, Mega, everyone. And I have more than 25 years of corporate experience in the IT field. And I had the privilege of going through the IITD, and I look forward to this session very much on the instructional design.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for brief introduction, Chandran. So let me invite Amrit Raj.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Amit Raj. I am based at Coimbatore. I completed my MSc in Counseling and Psychotherapy. As a trainer, my area of interest is emotional intelligence, particularly to take this emotional intelligence to parents, schools, and corporate. So this is my area of interest. I am based at Coimbatore. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Amrit Raj. So let me invite Megha.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. I'm Megha. I passed out from IITD batch, Bangalore batch, 8th batch, and I have over 10 years of experience in IT and over 3 years of experience in alternate therapy called Bowen therapy. Now I'm just kick-started my career as a trainer. So hopefully all my learnings till now, I will be able to benefit people with all my learnings. And looking forward to hear from you, Balaman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Megha. So let me invite, okay, Kiran, you can introduce yourself, maybe brief.
Hi, I'm Kiran, basically creative and a design strategist. Um, my career began as a designer, graphic designer, more as a graphic designer. I'm not qualified, but very well articulated through my dad's training, who had 2 degrees. Challenge was most of the students uh, were teaching in art school. He said, "Why you want to go and learn from students?" That's where my I didn't go to any art school. I started off my career with my dad. That's my beginning. So my passion in branding grew right around 15 years ago when I started studying deep into branding. That's where I moved from design to branding and learned a lot about, studied a lot of international brands, attended a lot of international summit to gain knowledge. So that's how I became a more of a brand strategist, consultant, and also a creative strategist. That's where my background is from. So I'm very passionate about design. Design, and it's design something triggers a whole lot of heart waves in me. That's where
Voice is low.
my voice, huh?
No, it's a little better. It's better.
Yeah, it was better. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Suniranjan.
Sudhir Ranjan. Yes.
I think there's a lot of noise, background noise.
He's on the road.
I'm on the train. I'll look later.
Okay, okay. Take it then.
He's on the road, I think.
On the train. Okay. I am Sudhir Ranjan Mandal. Basically, I'm a banker with around 38 years experience. Now I am freshly retired. I'm looking into financial planning and investment planning. My main interest is now in farming in eco village. So for which I just went for an electric vehicle training program. I'm on the way back home now on the train. So in eco village, of course, will cover various aspects of ecological living, like electric vehicles, recycling what you have or whatever resources you have, and solar power, other sources, alternative sources of energy in daily living, reduce your consumption of fossil fuels and the like, and grow what you have to eat. Grow local, buy local, that sort of purpose. We are likely to start an eco village in physically near Bangalore, around 150 kilometers near Bangalore, shortly. So that is my main focus right now. So I've given up other parts of planning and all that. So I am into this right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ranjan, for sharing that. Thank you. So let me invite the next person, Radha Narasimhan, sister of Bala Narasimhan. To introduce her. Radha, you are there. You can introduce yourself. Okay. Okay, I think
He's not in there.
no, she's there, but I think in mute, maybe because she has logged in from Australia. Okay, so let's invite next is Lily Sarkar. Lily, you are there?
Yeah, hi. So what I'm supposed to do?
Introduce yourself or brief what you do.
Hi, everybody. My name is
Hi.
Lily Sarkar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on the phone, so I can't see everybody's faces. So everybody, whoever I can see, are all looking nice. And I'm from the IITD Bangalore batch with Kushal and Bala, and I think few others are there from our batch here. And what else I have to say now?
No.
Your profession,
Happy to
what
be
you're
here.
doing.
What I'm doing? Okay, I work. Raja. He has to say something. Okay.
We are asking
Okay.
you questions and you are answering. Let's
Somewhere
make
or other she's
introduction more
working.
interesting.
I should have been on my laptop. I wanted to see everybody's faces. Anyway, so I work in a college, so it's work from home alternate days. So rest of the time, I try to learn something. So I've joined some short courses or the other. And I'm not very frequent in these meetings. Kushal, very congratulations for doing it. You do it so consistently, and you've been getting speakers from outside also. And Bala's session, though, I definitely didn't want to miss. And even the topic is so good, it's so relevant, because a lot of soft skills topic that we anyway keep hearing. This is very technical, and Bala does it so well. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you for introducing. Okay, so last person we will invite now is Mahesh Kulkarni, if you are there.
Kushal, I'm not introduced yet.
You are already in all the meetings.
I think you called me. I was there. Pradeep.
You're
Too
talking
much
for
flashes,
everyone,
man.
no,
Now the
Raja,
time
that's
is the
right.
problem.
So Raja, you can say 30 seconds because what I am doing is we are inviting new people. We already, most of them we know, right? So I thought of inviting every time new people so that it gets more clear and we can get connected. That's the only reason. But anyhow, you can introduce for 30 seconds, no issue.
Yeah. So my name is Sai Raja Chokkalingam. I got two names. One is my author name, Sai Raja, and Raja Chokkalingam is my original name. I'm an author, entrepreneur. We are into solar power. One of our friends was talking about the solar power. So we are into solar power. Rooftop solar installation and this thing we do. That is our main profession. And I'm also a student of IITD. So and all my friends are here. So that is my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing. Maulik Bhavishi, you can introduce.
You missed Mahesh, actually.
Yes, so not, he's on.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Good evening. Audible, sir.
Hi, good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Yeah,
Okay,
good
sir,
evening.
you can go. You can go first. I'll go next.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, sir. Kushal, sir, thank you so much for getting the like-minded people on this platform. We are really grateful to you for this wonderful service you're doing. I'm Mahesh. I'm still serving in the Defense Forces, and maybe shortly I'll be hanging my boots. I'm IITian from Delhi batch. This is the second Delhi batch by Dr. Rajan, and we just finished in last year. My passion is for personality development and motivating youngsters to join this field of defense, and motivation, leadership, communication skills. These I would like to work more into this, and of course get into the corporate training. That is one of my passion, which I'm looking forward to. Still learning in the learning stage, and I firmly believe that wherever there is a sharing of knowledge, I would love to be in the queue. Thank you so much for getting me also on this platform.
Thank you, Mahesh. So yeah, Maulik.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, my name is Maulik. I'm living in Surendranagar, which is approximately 3 hours drive from Ahmedabad, and I have gone through several certifications as a trainer. I read a lot. I have more than 700 non-fiction books in my personal library. I'm a bookworm. To tell you the truth, I have more books than friends or clothes. Usually people go for clothes or friends, but I'm a bookworm. And I'm working on becoming a subject matter expert on learning and development, health, sales, wealth, and HR and law as well. I'm into multiple fields. I wanted to start few NGOs in order to establish really good standards for MPs and MLAs
Okay.
for serving my country. This is it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So let me invite Bala. So Bala is going to share today about the training which is really required, that is instructional design. And Bala has been for corporate world, and I think more than 2 decades she has served, and she has worked in various L&D department, and she's been learning various aspects of behavior and also more about the training part deliverable. And she runs her own organization currently, and she's been organizing a lot of programs as well, mainly for teachers and school, you can say principals from various across the India right now. And she has already delivered many programs. Okay, and it's a privilege for us to listen to her again. So maybe she would give more brief about her. Let's invite Bala, and over to you, Bala, right now. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Kushalji, and thank you very much, all of you, for joining. And the introduction you gave me, I hope I can meet the expectations. Yes, I have worked over 3 decades of experience. Most of it has been in the corporate world. I was with IBM for about 26 plus years. For 13-14 years within the learning and development team. And after that, I moved into a role within the business, and where I was enablement and engagement with sellers right across, and where we had solutions and assets that were developed for various industries and service lines. I was managing the internal communication, engagement, enablement of all the client reps and sellers right across with the material that we actually have. In my first part, that is 13-14 years in learning and development, which was the best part because I'm very passionate about training and learning. And I was started off as class management, and had very good mentors who had actually trained me in design and development. And that's when my journey actually started. I had worked with the best people who really were a little hard on me, and the outcome was that they wanted me to become something that I was already had potential. So that's how I'm here today, and I'm talking to you about instructional design, which was the great learning that I got from all the mentors that I worked with. So my topic today is about instructional design, and like I mentioned, this topic is a little heavy because it is talking about designing. What are the nuances about designing a program? And what is instructional design basically? Why do you need it? Why do you need instructions or process for you to actually put a program together? And in terms of what are the best practices and how do you go about doing it, etc., is what I'm going to share with you about. So if you can share this, allow me to share my screen. Okay. This is a warning for you before I share any of my slides. I love a lot of color. So all my slides are going to have a lot of color and images that are colorful with multiple formats. So don't expect anything to be totally corporate from the background that I come actually from. Because I feel, one, the topic is a little heavy. So it's very important that I package it well so I get your attention. And also that the most important messages that I want to actually share through these slides, it's very important that I want you to read them, and do stop me at any point of time if you have questions. Kushalji, I know I said 30 minutes, but there was so much that I have to share that I've added a few more slides, but we'll see how it goes. And this is what I'm going to share about instructional design. So this is my topic, best practices in instructional design.
To see our screen also on the thing, and
Okay.
also the Zoom panel we are able to see.
Okay.
So you can just hide.
What do I do?
Just share just the presentation maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Just you're sharing the screen, I think so. Looks like.
Okay. Is this better?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
Just open the PPT and then select while it's a screenshot, just select the PPT. Don't select the screen actually. Maybe I think our whole
You will select this particular screen.
yeah, only the
So basically, it's blocking your screen, our images.
Okay, it's blocking. Okay, funny, because normally this works for me. I don't know why this is happening this time.
Yeah, even I'm seeing this for the first time.
Okay.
yeah.
Even now.
Even now this is happening?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Kindly press the F5 button, full screen, make it full screen, maybe working, I think.
Yeah, okay. I will first share my screen and then get into the screen mode, right? That's the normal process?
Yeah.
Okay, just give me a minute. I'll just. I normally don't have this because I've shared it a number of times. I don't know why. Okay.
Sometimes it happens.
Same thing.
It's the same thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're not
same
able to
thing.
see in my screen mode?
You reduce the PPT, no? Then you will go to the regular mode, PPT.
Oh, Bala, you can
Screen.
reduce the number of viewers. Make it that one dash.
Yeah.
There'll
So
be no viewer, only speaker. So then nothing is blocked.
Is this
Kushal,
okay?
you can pin it, no? Pin.
I suggest
This
you
is
go
better.
speaker view.
Now it
speaker
is
view.
fine, now it is.
Speaker
Okay, now
view.
is it better?
No,
So
screen
I
is
have
gone.
to, okay, I know. So I took it out. So you're saying I get off the gallery view or be on the gallery view?
Go to
Get off the
speaker
gallery
view.
view. No gallery.
whether it's a gallery view or speaker view, that is nothing to do with this actually.
Yeah, one
I know,
minute.
but at least it will not block the screen, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, just, okay, sorry. Really sorry for this.
No,
While
don't
you
worry. Yeah.
sharing just the presentation, while you clicking
Don't
on
get
share
tense.
screen,
Ah,
I
clicking
think
just
everybody stop their videos. Maybe it will help.
No, I know it is connected, yeah. She's the host. She is only controlling everything. So she can do whatever she wants.
okay.
Okay. Same thing, but still okay. You can run it, no problem. Otherwise, it
It's
will.
okay, Bala, you can go ahead. If you
Yeah.
want to talk face to face, you can stop share and do that, right?
Okay,
That's fine.
so
Yeah, that's perfect.
you're able to see, right?
Yeah, we are need to see. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the topic today is instructional design. So before we start the topic, I just wanted to check what do you think we're going to learn today about instructional design? What crosses your mind? So you're free to actually allopally annotate if you want to actually add in. What do you think you're going to learn today about instructional design? I just
You want to give your instructions. We are going to hear your instructions. That's all.
Okay, that's one. You're going to listen to my instructions, okay? What else? What else?
Yes, what are the activities or games or how the content is delivered? That is what is instruction design, I think.
How to structure your
Suppose when
presentation.
we prepare any topics.
Okay, wonderful.
So
Yeah,
Bala, it can be a system wherein you assess the needs of your audience, design process, provide the materials and evaluate the effectiveness throughout.
Wonderful. Okay. What else?
How to structure your content in a way that
I think
is,
you have to structure whatever you want to give instructions, the way it should be presented so that it is more effective for the audience.
All this, can I tell it in a very simpler way? It is a
Yes,
worksheet where you write what to do, how to do, why to do.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Simple.
I mean, I'm just wondering, you almost had all the answers. Do I go through this?
We are going to have a lot of bulb movements. That's what I feel.
Oh, I hope everything that I share is going to be a bulb movement for you, Raja. Thank you. Thank you. And I think you almost got it. You know, there's so much, and that's basically what I have put together today in terms of what are we going to learn today. So what I'm going to cover as part of this presentation is what is instructional design and what is the process or the steps of instructional design, like how Kiran put it, you know, the worksheet in terms of what, why, when, how, etc. that you put together, and how of the instructional design. So how do you go about putting this whole thing together? And then while you're doing this, what are the various methodologies that you can actually use in terms of models, and how a few things, in the interest of time, not included too much, but a few things that you could actually be including to make your whole content interesting. So that is what we're going to cover today. So why is instructional design important? Like you mentioned, you know, whatever you mentioned, one is the whole activity of putting it together forces you to think, you know, identify and think. Like somebody said, need analysis, you know, find out about what is the need, analyze it, and put it together and make kind of a purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, and how you're going to be engaging your audience for whom you're actually putting the whole content together, how you're going to be designing that whole module. And and you need to be, you have to critically think when you're trying to put that whole content together, and also take a high level approach in terms of, I'm here putting this together for a particular set of audience who have these particular needs, etc. And that's why the whole thing comes together. So what is instructional design? I mean, when I want to put a definition down to ensure that we're all on the same wavelength, but if you have anything more to add, please feel free to do. What I think in instructional design is a purposeful activity that actually results in how you combine, you know, the strategies, the activities and resources, everything to facilitate the learning for a set of people. And who is an instructional designer? He is a person who's competent to design that whole instruction. So this is what I think the instructional design and instruction. So is there anything else would you like to add to this, or does this make sense to you? What instructional design is and what is a designer? You're fine with this, or is there anything more that you think you could add? I guess that is a no, and I'm going ahead. So what is the process and what is the steps that we go through as we put in this together? Like I mentioned, that this is going to be a little heavy. So please feel free to stop me at any point if you have a question or a clarification, or you think there's something more that could be added to what content I've put together. So the process of putting an instructional design or putting a content together for a particular program involves a number of steps or things that you do to ensure that the whole intervention or the learning intervention is effective. So you start off like analyzing the need, like Devika mentioned. So you assess the need in terms of, somebody comes and says that, hey, I want you to put a training program together, and these are some of the things, but you need to probe further. You need to understand why. Is there a real need for a program per se, or is there something else? So that's why you do a need analysis. And then based on the need analysis, you put some kind of a purpose together, and more or less, this is what I think the whole objective of why I'm doing this is. But you need to also go further and to analyze who are these people for whom I'm going to be doing the training, who are the audience. So there is an analysis that you need, which will give you a lot more input in terms of how you can actually put the program together. Then you have to plan an assessment. Now, assessments are very important parts of a content. So when I'm putting this together and I'm speaking to a set of people only, and here's what I gauge in terms of this is what the program is about. And here's what I think are the set of people who are going to be attending. Now, when I want to go a step further to ensure my program is effective, I do something called the pre-assessment and communicate about the program. So what I'm trying to do, I'm starting to connect with the audience before the program. So I connect with the audience and telling them that, hey, this is the program, but there are a couple of questions that I want to ask you. This is to make sure that the whole process in terms of why I'm here, what am I going to learn, is all balanced and aligned. Then based on these inputs, if I get any, that I develop my whole module together. And then when I go and deliver the program, and during the program, when I'm delivering, it's important for me to understand that for what I have put the program together and how I'm running the program are people getting the learning? Are they able to assimilate the learning based on what I've put together? So what we call that is a formative assessment. And at the end of the program, I need to know if you got everything that you want or what you came for the program. Then you call it summative assessment. So from a delivery perspective, you have a pre-assessment, you have a formative assessment, you have a summative assessment, and at the end, what you do along with the summative assessment is to measure the effectiveness of a program. So I've called out these steps outside the whole process is because for you to understand that these things are very important. Now, these are all the steps typically that is actually put together when you actually design a complete training intervention. So the first step, I'm going to go into each one of these steps and try and explain what it actually means. So it is easy for you to understand why these steps are important. Now, the first thing is about designing an objective, So while I'm putting this together and I'm doing it, let's take an example that you're doing a training program for an organization, a mid-size organization that is in running a business for the last, let's say 10, 15 years. And then they come out and they said, hey, there seems to be a lot of problems. We are not able to meet our deadlines most times. Though the people are very hardworking and skilled, but there seems to be a very big mismatch on this. So when you put a program together for this, the first thing you perhaps need to do is to understand the business in terms of what kind of business are you doing. It is very critical for us to understand, not to look at it as a piece. If the person comes and says, I think you need to do a team building program, it may not be necessarily a team building program, but I need to understand the background of it. So who are you? What is the nature of business? What do you do? What are the business drivers? Who are your competitors? And what are you trying to achieve this year,
Bala,
5 years down the line? Yes?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
All the steps which you have listed, how come task analysis part is not there?
I'm coming to that because this is first the point of view that you create on your first step. And as you get further and you do this thing, then you get down to putting down the nitty-gritty of that. When you do your need analysis or when you're asking these questions, these are a couple of questions at the base level that you want to ask. That's the first step. Somebody comes across and asks you that I need a training program. You first need to know, what is your organization about? What do you do? Those kind of basic, we could call it a 6,000 feet level understanding of what they do and why, that you actually kind of figure out. The task level in terms of getting down is getting down to your nitty-gritty. This is at a very high level in terms of who are you as an organization? What are your business drivers? What are you trying to achieve as an organization? So when you probe and ask these questions, there is so much more that you can find out about the organization. And then, for example, in this context that I told you, what I could read is perhaps you know, you are a great organization, you have all your stuff thing, but the communication in terms of what you need to achieve and how that cascades into each one's thing perhaps is not done there. That's why people are perhaps not meeting deadlines, not feeling motivated, etc. This is just the first level of understanding. But when I probe a little further, I understand a little more. But as a first step, it is very important that you understand the scenario or a background around which why factor is you know, around, you know, in terms of who are you, why are you here. So you ask all these questions basically for you to understand. Did that answer your question? The task level detail you're talking about in terms of the task level, in terms of who, what, etc. Is that what your question was about, Kiran?
Just a minute. When we design a training after need analysis and set the objectives, I think, and after the participant analysis, it's good that you are doing participant analysis. Very few people do it. I have seen you must be knowing Bodhi Training Solutions.
Yes,
from
Bodhi
Bangalore.
Training. Yes.
They do not have audience analysis part of their training design. They have very simple. I was disappointed with them. So it is good that you are doing audience analysis or participant analysis. So once we have done audience analysis or participant analysis, what we do is we do in-depth analysis of a task which is to be which is the subject matter or the content of the training.
Exactly.
So that from A to Z, from beginning of a task till the end of the task, all the competencies, all the knowledge, skill, and attitude, and all the issues which can arise at each step, and skills, knowledge, skill, and attitude needed for that, so that we can specifically select delivery methodology in order to
Absolutely. Yes, I'm covering all that, but you're going way ahead. I'm doing step by step and trying to do that.
Sorry.
But yes, all that definitely what you said is very valuable, and the need, because many, and the reason I've put down these practices is it's not prevalent in many of the organizations that actually do. But the value of doing each one of what you said is what I'm going to cover, definitely. And my next one is what you spoke about, which is audience analysis. See, it's very important for me to understand for whom I'm doing the program, right? See, for example, when my first exercise that I did, I wanted to understand in terms of, you know, what do you think you're going to learn from this session? And lucky for me that most of it, what you answered is what I have covered. And in case I've not covered and I don't have the luxury of time now to add it in my slides, but I need to look at a way of how I can add that so you get a value out of attending this particular session. Now, audience analysis, you know, why do you do that? Because it is important for me. It's not like these standard packages like time management. I pick it out and I just do it. And I don't know who you are in the audience, but here is my time management. But typically, when we do a program, it's important for me to understand where you're coming from. What are your beliefs, knowledge? In many cases, you may not get so much of information, but whatever you can get is very good for you to understand who are these people who are actually going to be attending your session. You know, this will help you about how you can make the whole content relevant to your audience. It is also looking at if there are people who are asking controversial questions. It's important for you to have something there as a strategy for you to cover that, and also look at how you can actually address the need of that particular set of participants. It is looking at adapting to the needs. Here I am enrolled for your program, and this is my need. I know I read the time management thing, but I need to understand where you're coming from. So whatever I do together as a time management session, it is relevant for everybody that is attending my session. So the audience analysis is very critical, and it's important that we do that. You'll find all kinds of people who are attending the workshop. You know, somebody like that who is skipping from one workshop to another, and you know, you don't know why he's actually attending the workshop. Would it be to tick off his certification or what? But you get all sorts of people who are actually trying to attend your program. Now, the word audience, you know, when you actually expand it, there is so much that you could actually learn from it. For example, audience, if you see on my screen, you know, you analyze You understand, in many cases, if you have the luxury, you can even do a demographic kind of a study in terms of who they are, male, female, age groups, education levels, nature of work, occupation. Education level, age and gender is very important. You might have a PhD sitting in your class, and then you might have a young person up to about 25 sitting. So you have a whole range of age groups sitting in your class. So it's very important for you to know. So when you do that, you have a very learned person. So for you to actually make sure that you alter the content a little so it is, relevant to everybody attending. Interests in terms of what is their investment in the topic? Why do you think they need to attend the program? What is your relationship with the audience? I mean, in terms of how you can gauge the attitude and think to some extent when you find out a lot of these things that is actually part of the whole analysis process. So audience, basically, when you expand, there's so much more that you can do in the audience analysis. Now moving to assessments. Assessments, when I talk about, the first thing that you're doing here as part of this process is the beginning of a very important task that is called the need assessment. I'm assessing a need in terms of what is this requirement? Do you actually need a training program per se, or do you need a workshop, or it just can be something else that I can do? So I'm assessing. And when I do the assessment, I follow the process, the cardinal rule of diagnosing before I prescribe, right? I'm trying to understand the environment, and I'm looking at, if it is, for example, a training program, and I'm looking at a skill program like what you mentioned, Malki, what you mentioned, in terms of here we are, in terms of skill level, and the organization expects me to get them at a particular level, and this is where they are right now, and this is the gap. And how am I going to do it? I'm going to try and look at how I can probe further to find out. And I'm doing assessments to help me understand where they are now, where I need to get them, and where they can possibly be tomorrow and in future after applying the learning based on what I have put together. So the whole process is diagnostic. I'm doing something before the program. I'm doing something during the program. I'm doing something after the program. In whole thing, I'm measuring in terms of how the whole learning process is actually progressing. So that is what I will be doing as part of the assessment process. Any questions here? Does this make sense? Would be good to hear some voices.
Yes, Bala.
Do you think this makes sense? Okay.
Quite educative.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay.
It does.
Thank
I have
you.
a question, Bala.
Yes, please. Please tell me.
Okay. We were talking about audience analysis.
Yes.
So how come you have not done audience analysis for this session?
Yeah, this session, I couldn't have the luxury of doing the analysis. So what I did at the beginning of I said I had the luxury to at least ask you what you expect from this program. But considering the topic that I'm presenting today, which is instructional design, this is like a topic which it is a process or a method that is standard and universal right across. And what
Yes.
I'm actually teaching you is more about what the process is all about, and what I'm doing in between is seeking your, views and thoughts and answering questions. So that way,
I agree with you. I agree with you that it is a universal process that is applicable in all different situations of trading. At the same time, participants are different. So possibly you might have given a thought about audience analysis for this section.
Point taken. We'll consider that. Thank you very much.
Bala, I have a question. What
Yes,
was there in
lady.
the red circle? It is blocked.
Oh, again, am I doing that?
No, it doesn't matter. Just read. Just the small thing is blocked.
Okay.
Summative.
Summative.
Okay.
Summative
Thanks,
is the assessment that you do after the learning, where you're measuring the effectiveness of the whole process. So what you do is during, which is formative, before, which is pre, and then a summative, which is after the session that you want to measure. Now, these are all elaborate in how it is typically done when you're actually running a program. I'm sorry. Okay, I guess.
Okay, in
That
audience
was the background.
analysis,
Yes, please.
in audience analysis, you have considered the levels or the cadres
because you might get a person who is very senior and a person very junior.
Yes.
So you have not covered that point.
Yeah, so if you look at the demographics, I'm looking at age, gender, education level, nature of work and occupation. So when I'm looking at age, perhaps there's somebody, like I said, an example that you possibly will have a PhD. Like in this set of audience that we have today, we have so many experienced people coming from, backgrounds with so much of experience behind them versus people who perhaps are just entering into the field of training and education or whatever. So we have an audience that is right across. So for me as a for me as a trainer, one is for me to re-emphasize what you have already learned. Many times learning interventions is about learning and relearning. And many times when I enroll into your program or whatever, it is about for us to understand and expect. So assuming that I've done a pre-assessment and I told you what I would possibly cover and what you have understood about, I'm saying best practices of instructional design. So if you're an extremely experienced person, you will know that perhaps I'll get to learn about different things unless you already know the topic. And if you know a topic, I'd love to pick your brains to see how you can actually add on more value to what I'm already sharing here today.
Excuse me, but the age will not determine which cadre he is in, what level he is. A person
along with age,
very low and his age is very high. So that doesn't tell us which cadre it is, because cadre-wise people will understand differently.
Absolutely. So, sir, audience analysis is a little tricky, given that you have an opportunity and a luxury to actually do it. There's a lot more that you can ask. So, for example, age definitely is not a thing, but I do know there is somebody who is perhaps little aged. Obviously, a lot of experience may not be in terms of qualification, but the fact that the age itself is a lot of experience for the person. Education level, which you're going to be sharing with me when I do the analysis, would give me a lot more insight about where you come from, your age, and nature of work and occupation. So if you're going to tell me that I served for 25, 30, 40 years in some, so my assumption is that in that particular position with so many years and this thing, I would get an understanding of where you come from and what your experience is, etc. So that gives me a little insight about what I can actually find out. This is just a suggestion in terms of what questions you could ask, but you can actually probe a lot more further to find out more if you have that luxury to do it when you get a requirement for the program. Does that make sense?
Right. Thank you.
Bala, I would like to add few points.
Yes, sir. Please tell me.
See, you might have heard of a book by name of Complete Guide to Training Delivery. In that book, some king, I don't remember the names of the authors. There are two or three people who have written this book, and all of them have PhD in learning and development. In that book, what they suggest is, in order to do audience analysis, not only you take into consideration all the points you have already mentioned. In addition to that, you also take into consideration how is their vision. For example, some people may have hampered eyesight, or some people may not have eyesight issue. So those people who are having glasses or wearing spectacles can be made to sit in the front of the training room. Probing. In addition to that, if they have any allergies or infections or any illnesses, or is any of the participant physically challenged or handicapped, so that if we have this information prior to delivering the training, we can make better arrangement and customize.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So that is a wonderful point that you made. So further probing when you find out, and you could look at special questions that you could ask, which give you a much better thing. And especially when you're doing a face-to-face program and you have the luxury of seating people in a session. And when you notice that either they give you the information, but when they don't give you the information or haven't had an opportunity, what you could actually do initially when you're welcoming people inside your class, if you haven't had those questions, perhaps you could notice that and look at how you can rearrange something to make them more comfortable for you to before you run a program. Definitely. Good point. Thank you very much. So coming back to this, we covered this in terms of assessments and why they're important. Now I'm going into need assessment. Now, need assessment, like I said, the cardinal rule is to diagnose before you prescribe, just like the doctors do. So first, what it helps you understand is if the need really exists. Many a time, like I said, when they come across for a particular program, you feel it doesn't need a learning intervention. It needs something else. So when you do an assessment of the need, it gives you an understanding if the need really exists. And then if it does, what do you need to do to fill the gap? So what you're trying to do at that point is that you're trying to look at the current capability in terms of what is existing right now to where they're expecting, them to be, and what is the gap and what are the needs in that particular gap and how you're going to achieve it. What are you going to be doing about this? And you also need to understand that in case, because many a time when they come to a need, they'll also give you a flip side to it. Because of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going wrong. So the consequence of not doing it is also being conveyed to you subtly when you do the probing and the need analysis question. So that is need analysis and what it can actually do and why it is important. And then there are different types of need analysis. You could do it from a very different level, from an organization assessment. Like I said earlier, apart from finding out what the business nature of work, etc., that they do, business drivers, who are the competitors, etc., the other set of things that you could also do is to look at what is like, if it's a technical company and focused on a particular thing, you understand typically what is the skill level and who. They could be system analysts, they could be researchers, they could say, but give you an idea of the knowledge, abilities, and capabilities the company has. And in terms of if the company needs to achieve this, here are the competitors, here are the business drivers, and here is more or less the skill set that exists within the organization. Gives you a further idea about the organization and what they do. And also looking at, technological trends. When you probe further about the business drivers and business needs and in terms of what they want to achieve, there are a lot of things that these people share in terms of 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this is what we're trying to do. Here's a new group that is looking at something new. So it gives you an idea about the whole organization, the environment, the skill set, etc., and who are the people who are part of the organization to some. And like I said, if you add on more and probe further, depending on your requirement, you can find out a lot more about the organization for whom you're doing the program. So there is a second level, which is again a task level. There are specific tasks and skill knowledge. So somebody says that, this kind of program, here we are, what we do, but what we need you to do is put together a program for 1, 2, 3. So that time you get down, it could be related to skills, abilities, knowledge, or anything for that matter. So that analysis is the second level that you do beyond that, wherein you go to the next step to find out a little more, because you're narrowing it down to the need of how you're going to analyzing the need on what is going to feed into your content development. And the other one is the individual performance assessment. So many a time there are nature of programs that is related to individual performances. So while you just do the first step, you do have to do the second step, but you also need to narrow it down to something else that has an impact on the individual's performance in terms of if this particular thing is going to be complementary to the individual skills and thing is going to complement his efforts towards performing a particular. So there are different types of assessments that can be done when you're doing a needs assessment, basically. So this is actually, if you look at the whole process of assessment that we're doing, it is all part of the larger assessment, the whole, diagnostic process that we're going through. We're doing something before, we're doing something during, we're doing something on, but constantly, if you see, it is a diagnostic continuum that you're going through. The whole effort is to make sure that the program that you're putting together is going to be effective, is aligned to what the business needs, is the need of what the audience are going to come there for, and also that it's going to transform whatever they are doing and make an impact, basically, of whatever that they're going to apply the learning much later. So what pre-assessment, for example, pre-assessment is a simple way of checking. So when you see the process that I shared about pre-assessment, if you have a luxury to ask a couple of questions and you give a high level, this thing of the content you're going to share, and then you ask them a few questions to gauge and understand in terms of, what do you hope to learn from this program? What do you expect to gain? And how much do you know? For example, if it's a skill program, and you need to know what level of skills they are at right now. So there are a set of questions that you possibly ask. So some of the sample questions I've given you here, but you can tweak it further and based on the context and ask these will give you a lot of inputs in terms of who your audience are, basically skill set or understanding or knowledge level, and for you to actually include anything that you want in your program. So pre-assessment is typically all these steps. And what is the advantage of pre-assessment? Just in case you have somebody or 2-3 people in your audience, perhaps who have a different set of expectations. And if time permits, you could look at including or tweaking some bit of your content. And then most of these questions that you ask at pre-assessment, it's important that you put something away even for the end of the program. So you're gauging, right? You're understanding that this is what you came for and you have learned now. I want to know, did you actually get what you want from the program? I'm going to stop at this point and ask you if it's okay. Do you have any more questions? Because I know the content is a little heavy. It is all taking in and less of actually interactive things. So are you okay so far? Is there any questions, any more questions that I can address at this point?
No questions so far.
Yeah, Bala, I have got a question.
Yes,
See,
Raja.
now the company gives you certain things that they want to be solved.
Okay.
Now, due to our experiences, we may have some experiences. Based on that, we can give some solutions.
Okay.
But how to find out whether the solutions are really applicable and our solutions are
Made an impact.
really given the result, have resulted actually.
Yeah. So when you design the program, Raja, typically that's where these steps that I'm saying. So they tell you that you want a program and based on your experience, you're putting something together. But the process of you putting this whole thing together, that you follow a few important steps like the need assessment, you probe further and find out more. So whatever you're putting together is aligned to what the need is and what is actually the need for the organization, for the audience, and also for you when you're putting it together is something that is going to make an impact or transform that they're expecting your learning intervention to actually be. So they're expecting Raja to put this together, and basically I'm like I said, could be a thing that my people, an organization comes to you and says that we have to talk a lot of my staff needs to talk a lot with customers, etc. Their ability to communicate, their ability to put across what organization is about, an ability to put it across confidently, ability to resolve any issues or challenges that the customers have, but they're not able to do that is a requirement. So what typically will you do? You'll first find out what is this your organization, what do you do, what kind of questions or how do they converse with the client. You may want to observe some of those things to understand what and where are they having a difficulty in communicating. So when you're putting the whole module together in terms of helping them free up their blocks in terms of communicating, you're helping them communicate, you're going to give them practice in terms of communicating, etc. And that is the learning they're going to get out of the learning intervention. And then when you go back, you're also going to tell them that here's how you apply this learning. Here's the situation or scenario from your organization. Let's do a role play of that particular thing. And then when they're applying the learning, they're going to be taking the learning back and applying. And then as a follow-up program, you could look at following up and looking at after 3 months, going back to the same organization and asking them that, was there an impact? And where else there are still difficulties? Is there a follow-up intervention that is needed? That is something that you could do as part of the measuring effectiveness process.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
So formative assessment is something that you do when you're running a program. So here I am doing pre-assessment. I've tried to understand what the needs are, and I have aligned my content together for that. And now here I'm delivering the program now. And during the course of program, like now that I'm asking, and I don't have the luxury to ask too much at this virtual session, but I need to ensure that what you've come for, you know, in the program, that you're understanding that. So how do? I want to check whether your learning is progressing. I want to make sure that, you know, what you came for is getting covered in the session. And if not, I'm looking at ways of means of including things so that you get what you want. During that, I get the luxury to do that. And it also gives me opportunity for me to make sure that that learning that you've come for is actually being addressed. So that's why they do formative assessment. There are a lot of methods to do formative assessment. People do it in different ways. And these are some things that I found, but there's so much more available. But this is just to give you a taste of what formative assessment is about. You do this, like, for example, I remember a number of sessions. Devika did this on one of her sessions. She did a quick quiz trying to gauge our understanding in terms of what was covered. That is one method of doing. Another way could be an activity, a game, or an analogy that you can actually pick up. Or there is a way that in IITD they typically do first thing every morning, that each one, you know, shares in terms of, you know, what we covered the previous day and questions asked related to that. So it is like a memory down the lane in terms of learning. There are different methods to do that. And you can also look at a concept map method, which is a very nice one. You can put the topic that you're sharing and you can ask each one to share what did we learn, and you branch it out. It's like a mind mapping thing. So it's like taking the participants through a learning journey, you know, memory down the lane, to try and summarize everything that is done. So that is one way of doing. These are some methods you could do. There's a lot more available in terms of methods of doing formative assessment. But this is an important thing, that during, it's like a dipstick kind of thing that you're checking, man, I'm going now. I mean, are you guys getting it? Like I was doing it verbally now on an online session, saying, is it making sense? Do you think there are any more questions, etc.? Those are simpler ways of doing, but there are much more, you know, more exercises and games that we could do when you want to check that the learning is progressing well and people are getting what you actually need. Now, instructional design, you know, models, there are so many available and the most popular ones are ADDIE. We learned ADDIE in the IITD, if you remember. There's a way of how you can put your whole content. When I'm actually designing a content, what are the things? First I analyze, then I develop, then I design, then I deliver, which is implementation, then I evaluate. This is a very simple and most prevalent use. There are other ones that I wanted to just share. Just to give you an idea, you can go further into the web and find out more about each of these methods. But another one that I would really love to share is the design thinking method. You know, there are 5 steps of the design thinking methods of actually putting your whole content together. Now, design thinking is a particular strategy or a method that can be applied for anything that you are actually putting together for your client or customer. And what I found interesting is how these 5 simple steps that you have actually help you, you know, put this whole content together, and it really gets into the shoes of your audience, you know, really understanding, and then putting that, defining what you need to do, and then looking at brainstorming and looking at solutions on how you can put this together. It is also recommending that you do a prototype and then looking at how you can pilot. Now, pilot or test can be done with a smaller set of audience. So this is apparently a very effective way of putting together content. Now, for example, understand is basically nothing but your need analysis process that you're doing. And there are a lot of ways that you can do it. For example, you have something, have you heard of something called the empathy map? Has anybody heard about an empathy map that you do to try and understand your audience or the people for whom you're trying to put something together? Anybody heard of an empathy map?
No, we know only empathy. We don't know empathy map.
Okay, let me add a map to it and let me share with you. I'll share the format of an empathy map. So empathy map is basically something that helps you understand and plotting it down. See, these questions that you ask about your audience, what the map actually does, it helps you put that down actually and look at it holistically in terms of who are your audience, what do they think, what do they feel, where are they from. So you get a holistic picture of who they are. You know, it's just kind of a template available to put that together, based on which you can create something called a point of view, or the first objective, or define, or what we call a straw man. We call this a point of view or a straw man, and the first initial thoughts in terms of when you imagine when you're designing a program, you get the first understanding of what it is, and you're more or less looking at a skeleton or what they call a straw man that you put together. Then you're going further into it, and you're going to be brainstorming into how much more content I'm going to add in. Now, this is what that needs to be done. What can I do? That's when you start integrating your activities, your your content in terms of your details of the topic you're going to cover and how you're going to cover, whether you're going to use your video, whether you're going to use images, etc., how you put it, you ideate, and then you create something called the prototype. When you do the prototype, you have something in terms of more or less the skeleton and content of the program. And then why do you need to test? When you test at a smaller set of audience, if you get a luxury to gather a couple of people and say, hey, I'm going to run this, can I get your feedback? You're the first batch or pilot batch. And when you do that, you get an understanding in terms of any gaps or anything that you perhaps haven't included. And then you're ready to actually roll it out to the larger audience. So design thinking methodology and 5 steps, apparently very useful. And when you use the empathy map, I'll share the template of the empathy map. Use an empathy map, apparently very good. Then you can even use mind mapping when you're ideating, concept mapping when you're ideating. And then there are a lot of little tools and techniques available for you to do this. Any questions around this process?
5W1H you're not using here, actually. Instructional design. 5W1H.
5W1H, yes, is one methodology, but design thinking now is very prevalent now. And they apparently feel that design thinking is a very nice way of getting right into the head of, for whom you're putting this whole thing together. And a very successful methodology. We have already learned 5 thinking. We've learned so much. So I was trying to share a little more new models. So you'll add on to your, whole list of things that you could perhaps apply. That's the objective here.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So because we've learned, we have learned so much.
Balaji.
Yes.
Hello, Ms. Bala.
Yes.
I'm Neha this side. Can you also brief more about prototype? I could not understand the straw man of the flow of the proposed ideas.
Okay. Straw man is basically outline. So if you see a straw man, you see that thing, it is some basic stuffing that you put together in that whole thing. So when have you worked in a client environment or thing when you understand straw man? I'll show you the structure of a straw man, a document basically. Straw man is basically an outline in terms of what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. Here are the various methodologies with all instructions in terms of how I'm going to put this whole, how does it flow? So straw
Is
man
it the session flow? Is it creating the session flow?
Session flow and everything, including the methodology, mode, delivery, everything. So it's like a template available. Straw man is normally a terminology used in the training. I learned this from one of my mentors, from US, and they always use a straw man. And straw man is a very thorough template that forces you to think every step and everything that is important for you to actually put this whole thing together, basically. So it starts off with why you're doing, and it elaborates into the why, and it makes you elaborate the what you're doing, and then the how bit of it. And the how bit, it further elaborates in terms of, when I'm going to do this, what is my instructional notes? What are the points I'm going to cover? What am I trying to achieve in this particular slide? What is the message that I'm actually going to put across and how I'm going to put? So it's like a template available for you to put it. And it's a very nice guidance, especially when you're putting something together to make sure that, the loopholes or the things that you slip are to the bare minimum, basically.
Wow, nice.
It's a very nice methodology. And testing, we won't have a luxury many times to test, but it will be wonderful for you to test it. If you have your own IITD audience, you can say, hey, I'm putting this together. Can you be my audience? and here's the crowd that I'm doing it for. So I want you to be that crowd, and I'm going to share this thing. Give me a pay. So the luxury of having this large IITD team is all of us are trainers, and everybody knows what each trainer goes through in terms of putting together an extra. And I think we should use each other's, experience, expertise, and everything for us to bounce some of these out many a time, and then get that feedback before you go and roll it out to anybody outside. So that's the design thinking thing. Any more questions? Anything? Does this make sense? The 5 steps, though it's a different one. I wanted to share different models, though we have gone through the ADDIE, the 5 WH and everything. There were new things that I thought would be good for me to share. So there is a lot more different methods and how we can put content together.
Hi,
Does
Bala,
this
I
make
have a
sense?
question.
Yes, Lily.
What is the basic difference between ADDIE and this design thinking model? And is there any particular kind of training where design thinking is more suitable to create the instructional design? Or, how do you, design thinking does seem simpler, because ADDIE, I always found it difficult to really get it.
Yeah, see, Lily, there's no like very good and very thing. It depends on the context and depends on the circumstances for what you're designing and why you're designing. And many way design thinking apparently is very thorough, and people in the technical field use this methodology, and it really gets into it, forces you to think. Now, this is a very simple one that I'm showing you in terms of a 5-step. But you actually go into the details of design thinking, the methodology through which you go through each of these steps here is amazing. You're so thorough. First, which is the basic diagnostic process, is very, very thorough in the design thinking, because they believe that you really, really need to understand for whom you're putting this together, right? So you understand, you empathize, you learn about your audience, and then any preconceived notions that you have. So many a time we come with, yeah, I know them, they are typically like that. So the process you go through in this whole thing helps you, kind of eliminate any preconceived notions or ideas that you have of this. So the methodology takes you through this, and you're so thorough and apparently pretty successful, which is they apply these methodology in a different way for different, kind of domains or things that they do for putting things together, especially for clients, customers, etc. And I found it very useful. In fact, when I go through this,
Bala,
empathy map especially is very useful. Yes, please.
Yeah, Neha, this side, you have
Yeah, Megha.
created such kind of curiosity for these 5 steps now for design thinking. The next session you should take on design thinking itself.
I'm not much of an expert, but definitely I'll find
This is
somebody
something
who can...
really useful for all of us, because being an IITian, we all are quite aware of ADDIE model. So this is something very insightful for all of us.
They're different. Like, you see this one, like I showed you there, each one of them is amazing. And but there's, so much more that you can do. There is these, and each one, if you actually get into the details, you can find out where, and like I said, it depends the context, the circumstances for which you're designing. So some of these could be very, very well aligned to what you're doing. The others, you may need to make a little effort on the requirement to make sure that, but the process is very thorough. Design thinking process is extremely thorough. I'm a practitioner, as in I went through the first level in my organization, and we had a case study. And I think by the time we got to the level of prototype and test, we were very confident that it completely aligns with what the needs of the particular customer was. And I think it's pretty good because the methodology is that way. I'll see if I can add on more information about this, definitely.
Bala, Anil.
Yes, Anil.
Yeah, see, you were talking about prototype, right? Now when there are, let's say, for example, 10 modules or some 5 or 10 modules to be given as a training for a particular organization. Now, taking one of the modules and understanding, defining, ideating, and then creating the prototype for that one module, and seeing out all the alternatives, from all the alternatives, what is the best alternative, what is the best validations, what is the best questions, what is the best idea which comes through that, and seeing through that, creating that prototype and finding out all the loopholes of it and trying to correct that, and getting it tested and taking that results back in and putting it back into the prototype to create a better prototype. And once that's done, use it for all other modules so that the prototype, because of the prototype, you have got whatever you have left out, whatever you could not think about, whatever you have brainstormed, all that kind of ideas, so that you can apply this. Once you create a prototype, you can start applying for all the other modules. So that creates a kind of standard for rest of the modules to be created as part of the instruction.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're talking from experience, Anil. You develop so many solutions, and I'm sure you're applying this methodology, and that's yes, absolutely. And that, but in a training context or a module, one caution is when you said multiple modules, I'm assuming they are subtopics or connected or aligned with the topic. So if I have to do a parent topic on self-management, for example, so self-management, there are 3-4 modules that I possibly will do, starting with, could be understanding self-awareness, then looking at, what are the various things that I could do to imbibe that would be one. Then could be in terms of mindfulness, in terms of managing my time, etc. So there are multiple modules, for example, that I would do as part of that whole gamut of this thing. So, but if I test it in one, more from a method in terms of putting this whole thing together as a method, yes, does it work and etc. Fine, wonderful. Definitely applies. Yes. Yeah. But the caution is to make sure that, it is not two very different topics or totally not at all aligned. Then the whole methodology on how you put this together could change in sometimes.
Absolutely. So basically, certain times, unlike, for example, many organizations today, they want a customized solution of training in terms of for their particular own domain. It can be insurance domain, it can be financial domain, it can be kind of customer servicing domain. So all these kinds of domain, like we require, as an instructional design, you're going to put that using these different design methodologies. One is a design method and ready or something.
Absolutely.
But then when you are actually using this, you need to use the subject matter expertise to bring in the information to put the way from based on the different kinds of model, whatever you are thinking. Whatever.
Yes. So when you ideate, basically, so first 2 steps, you're looking at the first initial steps of understanding and then putting like a point of view. But when you start ideating, that's when, if you don't have the expertise, you call in that expertise. You get an SME there, or you reach out, and that's where the collaboration sometimes is very important, that needs to happen. So we have a luxury of so many people with experts in so many areas. So you reach out and collaborate on that program with somebody else who can add in more. So see, the end result is I need to make sure that whatever the need and the thing is actually being effective, and it is actually transforming or impacting or making a difference. So that's the ultimate purpose. Here we are with the understanding or a need in terms of why this is being done and what is the end result in terms of what they're expecting. So between this, if I need to bring in an SME, if I need to collaborate, if I need to do something in the ideate process, typically you should try and do that.
Balaji, I would like to ask a question in this regard.
Yes, sir.
So
yes,
being a layman in this subject, first of all, I would like to say, so you have stated 2 or 3, I think ADDIE model and the design thinking model, all are part of the instructional design. So which model I need to pick up? That is there any formula, or what should be the answer for that?
Not really, Rajiv, because we have learned, if you've gone through the IU and IITD participant. Have you been through the IITD?
Yes, I did. IITD.
Okay. Okay. IITD taught us about ADDIE. They taught us of the 5WH, model. They taught us the easiest ones. And then that is also good. But then it depends, how you are trying to, as you learn, some of these models are also available. You can go in and find out a little more about this and try and see if you can apply this to putting the whole program together. The whole purpose of putting this together is to give you more awareness of other models that is existing, and there is no the best one or the the least thing. It is how you are comfortable with it. So a lot of people are very comfortable with ADDIE, and like Lily said, maybe not ADDIE, she's not comfortable. I'm not very comfortable with ADDIE personally. I'd like to get into further details, and that's why I love doing the design thinking model, or I even use the other. There is one more model in terms of design and delivery. There are a couple more that I researched actually when I was putting this together. I'll share that definitely. But there's a lot, and it depends on your comfort level. You can start off with IID, like you said, you're just starting on this whole process, but you can research a little more into this and add more value to your program. As you find out your knowledge base is increasing and you're researching a little more and you're applying a lot more thorough modules. So your modules are actually designed effectively and you're getting the benefit out of that. And so are your participants. So there's no best one, but anything that you're comfortable with, and you could keep learning more and finding out more best practices that you can apply.
Bala, just this is Amrit Raj. Just I want to
Yes,
check
sir.
my understanding because there are a lot of models which are available, ID and so many models available. Again, the training which we are going to do, it is also the audience is also going to be different. Maybe it may be
Yes.
company CEOs or companies top managers or companies executives. Again, depending on the needs, we can select this model which we are comfortable with. So we cannot say that this is the best model or this is not.
That's my point. That's my point. But it is also depending, sir.
On the audience, so we can choose which model is best suitable for them at the same time which is comfortable to us.
I wouldn't think it is the audience. It is more about the methodology of developing. Audience is part of the process. I get a requirement, perhaps if I get an organization development requirement that at a top management level, I need to do vision, mission, goals, or whatever for the top management for the new year that is commencing, right? So I would look at understanding it a different way and perhaps I would use. And a model is typically a kind of a tool or a guideline that helps you put this whole thing together. And likewise, you have many. You have ADDIE, you have design thinking, you have the Gagné's 9 events of instructions. There are so many like that. But I feel audience, yes, is part of it. But then I think the whole process, what you're doing here is a need. And here I'm trying to look at which model or whichever I am comfortable with, or if I know more about the addition, more models that I can use, which is even better because it's more thorough in terms of the methodology of putting this whole thing together.
Well, just to add on, I mean, even for the organizations or wherever we are going to get the order. So the important thing is budget, resource, and timelines.
Yes, those are important.
This decides what model also to be selected because some of the organizations will not like to be tested. Some of the organizations need not be wanting to create a prototype. Some of the organizations may not wanting to get through all these processes in place to design it.
Yeah, but this, this is just a guidance for you as a trainer, not to share with the organization that, hey, I'm using design thinking 5 steps. Not necessary to be shared. This is for you as a trainer that you got a requirement. You don't need to be sharing typically so much of information with the organization on what methodology you're using to put the whole thing together. Ideally, I wouldn't share. You give me a requirement and I need to ask a little more about this requirement. Now, methodology or a model that I used is for me as a trainer in terms of what I'm comfortable with in terms of the whole guiding and etc. for me to put this whole thing together. I may go with the design thinking. If I'm comfortable with an ADDIE, I will go with an ADDIE. If I'm comfortable with the other, but that is not something you typically want to disclose in a training and developing content concept. But in a technical context, if you're developing a solution for a particular client, yes, you perhaps need to share with them. But for a training and developing content, many a time people don't actually, I don't need to tell the person that I'm doing, but if you really want to, that is also an option. But how you are comfortable on how, because you are the one developing that content, you have to be comfortable with the process and the model, not the organization who's given you the requirement has to dictate what model I use. I have to be comfortable because I am designing that module. So typically you don't share too much of all that is my thing. But what do the others think?
Yeah, Bala. Yeah, Bala.
Yes, Reena.
Yeah,
yes, Reena.
Yeah, Bala. I believe that quite many organizations, in fact, they give their preference of instructional design to be used. So they particularly ask you. Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. Yes, they give their preference. Yeah.
Okay, but I think that is something a trainer's prerogative, as a trainer, you should stand firmly, because, and perhaps you could even look at it differently. You're looking at, they say, hey, I want you to use this, because why am I asking you to do? For example, why am I recommending design thinking? Because I have tried it, I have used it, I found it very comfortable. And can I force that down on all you people? I can't. So that's the same thing. We'll say, while you say that instructional method is thing, here's what I've been doing and which has been effective, and this is what I am using. At that context, perhaps you can tell them that I'm using perhaps a design thinking, or I'm using ADDIE, which is the top 5 most prevalent or most used model for instructional design. So I'm saying time, place, circumstances, and context is how you need to look at for any of these things. Now, the whole objective today is to add on more to your knowledge in terms of different models available and how you can use them. But this is very good, is a hot thing now, design thinking. So you can learn more about this model and see how you can try it. Test it, pick up a requirement, fictitious requirement, and use these design thinking methodology principles and try and apply and see. And you need to keep getting comfortable, because like you said, if somebody is coming and say you have to use it, means they found some value in that. So perhaps you need to increase your knowledge base in terms of different methods or models that are available in the market. So you're not caught off guard, or it's not something that you have to learn on the go and develop a program. Now that's going to be a little difficult, right? So, but at the same time, it should be that as trainers, it is one of the important, competencies that we need to have, is to be constantly looking at ways and means of adding our knowledge base in terms of how we do our own role as a trainer. And, this is one of that, adding your knowledge base in terms of different models, different methodologies, different ways of packaging content, etc. You have to constantly do it, and this effort from Kushalji is also helping, but do keep researching.
Right.
Is what I would recommend.
Yeah. Yes. That's a valid point. Very valid point. Yes.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
Bala, 2 minutes left.
Oh my God. Okay. This is a participant's journey typically that you go through in terms of your participant going through. It starts off with, understanding, and as you take them through the training. So what you're doing is, from awareness, you're taking them through the learning journey, and then through the learning, the participant is actually considering and reflecting on the learning and looking at application of that learning, basically. So I have a couple more slides. Is it okay if I take another 10 minutes, if you guys are fine?
Absolutely, yes.
I don't want to rush through this content. I'm sorry, there were a lot of questions. So I didn't want to actually stop the questioning, because the whole idea is to make sure that you get what I'm actually trying to share. Now, the impact of your, designing. So for example, what am I putting together? It is a little bit of subtopics. It's a methodology in terms of how I'm going to package that content, in terms of activities, games, group discussions, and also looking at whether I'm going to throw in a few videos, etc. And in the last, to make sure that, the learning is captured and it is etched in the brain of the learner, that I'm looking at certain reflection activities and takeaways that I'm going to ask the learner to do. So for example, take this example of putting this whole breakfast cereal together. So you see a breakfast cereal that comes in a particular can. Now, if I am a person who's manufacturing, what is my end product? I want you to enjoy this along with things that you add on with them. So when I'm putting this together, I'm putting in the raisins, the Cheerios, the bran flakes, the dried fruits, and then the milk is something that either I give it to you as a sachet or something that you will add, and then you're going to take a mug in the milk in the mug. So the whole process of having the breakfast. So if you see how it is arranged, so that is what you're doing when you're actually putting the whole content together. So you're visualizing the whole experience of the end user of enjoying that breakfast cereal, and that's how you're putting this whole thing together. So this is an example that I wanted to share with you. So what is your end product? You should be able to visualize the end product and then work backwards in terms of putting that whole thing together. So that is about designing for impact. Now, using visuals in your program is very important, and we all know the importance of using visuals. and using the right visuals. Sometimes a picture speaks volumes of what you would like to say. For example, you see this ad, and I'm sure you have a lot more examples, but in this one picture, you know, you really get a message that anybody who is a real smoker or, you know, who is really addicted will really know what the end result is, or how his life is actually getting deteriorated because of his habit. This one picture speaks volumes, because, you know, your brain can see images that, you know, for 13 milliseconds, and visual impact is very high. You know, your brain can take a visual scene much better than a text. You know, it's much faster because it gets etched in your brain, is what the theory and the facts actually say. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read too much of this. I'm leaving you to read a few, or giving you a second or a minute or two to read this. But you must understand that when you're putting things together, your learners are actually evaluating your whole content and how you packaged it and how you're putting it across, and they're going to be doing it pretty fast. And like how you're doing it to me right now, I'm sure you're doing it. So this is what the trainer has to be careful about: the visuals, making it impactful, packaging it a little well. These are some examples of great visuals, and I'm going to run past this because I'm sure you've seen a lot more examples of this, of pictures and images that speak volumes, basically. So the last part of it is actually measuring your effectiveness of the program. This is a very important part at the end. You know, this is a total framework. It is a very important aspect of your whole training framework. The very important thing for you to understand whether I have actually met the objectives through my whole way of actually delivering the program or packaging the program. It's actually opportunity also for you that if your training has been extremely effective, it is going to be a long relationship with this organization or somebody. They're going to come call you back time and again to actually do this. So how do you do it? A very famous model is the Kirkpatrick model. You're aware of this. This is what we covered as part of the IATD. How did they actually react to the program? So the questions that you ask will actually get you a lot of this. To what extent? So you have specific questions that you ask for each of these areas that gives you an understanding on how effective, whether it is possible for them to apply the learning extra. But as a step of designing a program, this is something very important. Any questions around this, or can I move forward? Okay. This is just some characteristics of an exemplary trainer. What do you think could be good? What characteristics or competencies does a trainer need today? Anybody can share?
Knowledge, empathy, knowledge, empathy,
yes.
Attitude.
Wonderful.
Body
Yes.
language.
Body
develop the
language.
connect.
I'm sorry, what was that?
To develop connect with your audience.
Connectedness, absolutely. Yes. What else?
Authority.
Authority as in, you know, on the subject or a topic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What else?
Eye contact and posture, voice.
Modulation, eye contact, posture, and that you're talking about. Yeah, wonderful. What else? Anything else, do you think?
Add value to the trainees.
Okay, adding value as you go along. Wonderful. Anything else?
Being open to questions of the audience.
And ability to answer and feel the questions of the audience. Yes, absolutely.
Passion for training.
The
I'm
urge
sorry, sir.
to transform.
Passion for training. Passion.
Passion, absolutely. That energy and passion and everything. In fact, most of it, what you have shared is what I've tried to share here. If you look at command over the material is what you're saying, as in being able to add value, having knowledge of that material is very important. Preparation and practice, very critical. Rhythm and energy, the passion that you have when you are actually delivering the program and the way you deliver in terms of rhythm, very important. Strategic thinking, because when I'm going to put this whole thing together, if I'm getting questions that are outside, it's important for me to think critically, strategically, to see how it connects and bring that connection back into the program. And I'm a good evaluator. I'm looking forward for feedback and to make sure that I will put it back into my instructional practice again to make sure I add in. Being responsive, high energy, honest, tolerance, passion, humor. Sense of humor is very important. Sincerity, flexibility, ability to communicate, my enthusiasm. Some of these things are actually pretty important for trainers, is what the recommendation comes. So this more or less, I'm done with the session. I want you to share, what I've shared for the last, I think 1 hour, and I've taken a couple of minutes more. 2 insights from that session. Anybody of what I shared today? Can you give
bulb
me?
movements. We had a bulb movements throughout the session.
Project bulb movements. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Can you share 2 specific bulb movements you had?
One was a straw man, Bala. One was a straw man. Under the
Ah,
prototype thing, which should be really impacted. I mean, has made that impact in the mind. It will always be there. Second was the Addy. Yes, once again, Addy has been so friendly nowadays. Like he has become a part of the training journey. So these 2 were basic insights for me as an individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepika. Anybody else?
Design thinking and audience introspection.
Wonderful,
Yes,
Kiran.
design
Thank you.
thinking. Yes, Bala.
Absolutely.
In fact, during IITD time, we were introduced to just 2 of the topics. One was ADDIE model and another universal model. But today's session, we got to hear and know about a whole lot of other design prospects
Oh,
too.
thank you
So
very much.
all thanks to you, Bala. In
Thank
fact,
you.
on the sidelines, maybe I would want to get connected with you to know more
Absolutely.
about the other aspects also, which we didn't get to know.
Would be
during
more than
IITD
happy.
time.
More than happy to connect. Wonderful. Anything else from anybody else?
So Bala, what I understood from this session is that all the models are very relevant. So to pick up a one, we need more understanding, more education on that aspect. So I need to do that.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Bala, I would like to say, I don't know why it has been consistently happening during IITD training course also, whenever this topic was being taught. Every time I used to face the network issues, I used to miss the flow. And I similarly faced on the critical areas when you were discussing, and I some network
I
issues.
would be more than happy, Deepika.
The
to
third
take it
insight for me was to have a detailed insight of why this is happening again and again, specifically with
That is
instructional
narrowing it
design.
down. That's narrowing it down further. But Deepika, I'd be more than happy to connect with you.
Because I'm still confused, Bala. If you can just give me in short a tree structure about instructional design, ADDIE model, and Kirkpatrick. How do you connect this and fit into an tree diagram?
Absolutely. So Deepika, I will definitely block time and I can take you through this whole thing again in more detail. More than happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Bala. Thank you so much.
Otherwise, you can watch the video again so that YouTube is available for you to watch again.
Okay, before we wind up.
Bala, what about the empathy map? You said you'll show the empathy
I'll
map.
show you the empathy map. I'll show you the empathy map. But while I'm just putting up the empathy map, I want you to think about these 2 or 3 things that you want to take away from the session that you're going to be applying in designing your own sessions. What are the 2 or 3 things that you'd like to take away from the session that you'd like to change how you're going to be designing your session? And what specific changes are you going to make in your methods of designing the program? So I want you to take a minute or 2 to reflect and jot it down and make a commitment to yourself. I'll definitely come back with more details or more, elaboration on any of the things, but take a minute or 2 to do that. And the reflection is a very important activity. So we've spent about 1 hour and I've shared so much. For you as trainers, what would you like to take away and learn more about or apply in your thing is what I want you to take away. So this is the empathy map template that I was talking to you about. It's just like, it's like actually getting into the head of actually the audience and more. And this could look like an individual, but you can actually tweak it to be like if you have a set of audience and you can do multiple maps for different things and then consolidate it. There are different ways to actually get inside the heads of your participants.
Ms. Bala, who gave this empathy map? Is there any scholar behind this?
I actually don't remember. I don't
Like
remember.
suppose we use this empathy map in our slides, so do we need to have a reference? Or we
No,
must.
not at all. Empathy map is the methodology. It's not like something created. So if you see, it is just questions about how they think, feel, see, say, do, and it's copyright free and available on the web.
Oh,
and
are
it's
you
actually,
sure? Okay.
yeah, you can see different types of templates. Empathy map is actually creating a map, and there are these questions just to give you guidance in terms of how do you empathize with your audience. So when I'm through my process of doing the understand process, I'm going to think about who are these guys, my audience, what are they thinking, feeling, or what are they all about, and if I look at the whole thing is to narrow down, tweak it. You can change the questions. There are multiple templates available on the web.
Okay, thank you so much.
You can tweak it. Actually, you can change the questions based on the context. There are a lot of templates available.
Thank you.
This is concept mapping, basically. There are a lot of, matter available on the web. You take, this is like mind mapping, basically. And the 5-point scale that is available that you use for your evaluation. There are different ways that you can actually evaluate. This is a point of view, very simple, audience, need, insight, the first level thing that you actually do. So I know in the interest of time, we need to wind up, but I really like you to take a minute before you switch off or after you disconnect from Zoom to think about 2-3 things that you really like to take away from the session and integrating into the sessions that you're actually going to design, and think about the changes you're going to make. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry to have overshot my time. And I hope this session was helpful, and really be happy to connect separately or other ways to answer any questions or anything that you have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Bala, thank you. Thank you for the wonderful session. It was really useful and also a lot of takeaways. In constraint of time, yes, we'll be winding up in 1 minute. The reason is I have another session at 9.
Absolutely, yes, I know. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Friends, so those who have liked the sessions of Bala, you can directly ping her. She's also part of the various groups. You can post wherever you are on the WhatsApp group as well, our Telegram group, or even the YouTube channel. And then this video will be available if you want to review again. And maybe Bala would arrange someone on design thinking. She would invite someone to give a talk, maybe looking forward for that as well. And thank you, Bala, for keeping it so concise. I know it's a lot of content as well.
Comprehensive, yeah.
Concise. Absolutely. Like I told you, this is a little heavy topic, but there have been so many questions that have come to me, so I thought I'll share that. But it's so difficult not to this, and I know that's a feedback, and I'll definitely make sure that the next session is timed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And maybe anyone take 30 seconds to final feedback for the Bala, and then we'll wind up immediately.
Bala, it's very good session. We really enjoyed it. Too much of content. Okay. Mine is completely blocked actually. It is not good. It is so much. Actually, you want a lot of time. It's actually a 4 hours or 1 day program, which you wanted to concise it and make it. But you have done a very good job. It is in that time you want what you want to say, you have said it. So again, I'll have to watch it on YouTube. Again, we'll watch it in YouTube and get a lot of feedback. Thank you for that. Anyway, thanks.
I would like to say, Bala, your presentation skills are so good. Although the content was heavy, but the presentation was so good, we were able to understand it and we were in sync. All your presentation that ways.
Thank you very much, Meg.
It was complimentary.
It was a wonderful session, and it's almost like a recap of IITD session. So, what we learned, so we could correlate with what we learned in IITD. In addition to that, we added your session added something more to that.
Thank you, sir.
So let us give a grand applause to our Bala for this beautiful session.
Thank you very
for
much.
enriching us with so much of knowledge.
Bala, there are always
Thank
lots of learnings from you. And you are very good at presenting it in a very nice manner through the presentations. We loved your sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina.
Bala, I love your PPTs also. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Very
good,
aesthetic.
We were able to, it was very crisp. We were able to catch up where, you know, if you're losing somewhere because the content was heavy, because of presentation, we were able to catch up.
That's true.
It's very
So,
fun. It was
Bala,
very
Bala, do keep us inviting for your future sessions, please.
Yeah. Do a session on PPT also.
So,
Bala, the session was very powerful, but what I like the most is that your humbleness. At the end, you also took up feedback from what Mr. Kushal.
Yeah.
There's so much to learn, and there's so many of them with so much experience. It's a great opportunity, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bala.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bala.
Thank you, Bala.
Kushal ji.
Thank you, Bala.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Charles,
Thank
for
you.
organizing it.
yeah, great session. So be ready for that.
Good night.
Will do.
Good night. Good night.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And good night. Till
Good
then.
night, everyone.